Hello and welcome, Elizabeth. I'm super excited to speak to you today.
I'm really excited to speak with you too.
Why don't you share with people who's Elizabeth? What's your work? What's your passion? What's your story?
Well, I'm sort of a jack of all trades, if you will. My profession is I'm a medical provider, and I'm currently still working in an urgent care setting in California a few days a week. And I didn't want to give that up entirely as I became a transformational coach. And so, as you know, it's hard to balance several things. You know that intimately. And so, taking time to see clients one-on-one while still working in a clinic and while still being a mother was a daunting task. So I tried to think of a way that I could share my nuggets of wisdom that I've learned with others and how they can direct their lives inward in a larger way, I guess, a broader way. And so I came up with an idea for a book. I also published a magazine, and you thankfully have been a wonderful contributor to that, Magnificent Metamorphosis magazine. And that's another way that I can leverage myself as a coach with a larger audience while still having time to sleep at night and occasionally, go to the store and clean the house. So, it's wonderful to have interest in a number of things, but when you really are fighting against the time that it takes, you have to think smarter about how you can leverage yourself. And that's what I've tried to do.
That's fabulous. I love that. I never even thought of, looking at it that way. I'm curious, what's a transformational coach? Why don't you share your take on it? And I'm curious about what sparked you to even want to be a transformational coach.
Well, in medicine, which is my training, everything is very done by the book. And you follow standards of practice. And if you vary outside of that, you kind of get called to the carpet. And so I saw a need for actually seeing people as individuals and helping them in a way that the medical world just does not allow. We just throw drugs at people, or you send someone to a psychiatrist or a therapist, and the therapist talks to them, and then the psychiatrist does drugs at them. Didn't seem to ever get to the root of the problem. And so I became interested in coaching and basically being a life coach, but that is such a broad category. It still seemed rather scripted. So I came across Jamie Smart, actually, as have a lot of us, and basically trained in that style of coaching where you are teaching someone by just pointing them to the inside out nature of the way life really works anyway. But we forget. I mean, we know that when we're little, and we grow out of it because we get conditioned by whatever our circumstances are in the world. And so I wanted to have that type of impact as well as continue in medicine, because I didn't want to give that up entirely. So to have the best of both worlds, I've had my one foot in one world and one foot in another world. And they can complement each other. I don't acquire clients through, my work in medicine, but I am able to help people with resources that they wouldn't otherwise have if they saw anyone else in our clinic or in our system, really, especially if they're having stressful times, which right now everybody is, or suffering with anxiety or depression. I'm able to just in moments give them a few resources and help them to know that there is a better way to maneuver through life, and it's through tapping into their own wisdom that they already have.
So you really get to change the way you work with people, don't you? Even in your everyday work life and family life. So what's the difference you've seen there?
Well, I used to be annoyed seeing people with anxiety or a panic attack because it took time that I didn't have. And I thought, oh, okay, here we go, seeing someone with anxiety. Now when I go in the room, it's a whole different way of seeing that. And the first thing I usually say to them after I hear their story is, well, you know that being anxious about something is just being all caught up in future thinking, isn't it? And they all look and say, yeah. I say, it's, well, what if this, and then what if that, and what if that? And then it just goes round and round and round and round. And then they they snap out of it 99 out of 100 times.
Wow.
Sometimes have to medicate people because they're beyond functional and usually mentally ill. And so you may have to medicate them. But I don't give anyone anything for anxiety in the urgent care setting. If I do give them something for sleep, it's just like an antihistamine type drug that's a prescription. A little bit makes you a little sleepier than Benadryl, but not things that you would normally think, like Ativan or Xanax or other things that people often just get handed out like Tic Tacs. So it takes me longer. I'm with them longer, but when they leave, they're calm for the moment. And so I have seen that work over and over and over. And then I give them a little handout with some videos by Eckhart Tolle, Sydney Banks, some spa type music links that they can listen to at home to kind of get them out of their head, some reference books to read. So it's been a really huge difference in the way that I approach people that are feeling stressed out or anxious.
Yeah, I can see that. And they might be with you for longer at the time, but my guess would be perhaps they don't have to come back that often.
Correct. And I've only had, I think, one patient that I've seen in this kind of setting that wasn't very receptive to that. And they just strictly wanted medication and specific medication, which is, controlled substance. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't give that for this problem. So
I love the idea of leveraging that impact to more people. So to have the idea of a book being born out of that is absolutely fascinating. So when you first had the spark of the idea, what if I created a book? What did you do next? How did you know how you wanted that book to be and what you wanted to achieve with it?
Yeah, I didn't really want it to be a book about me or my journey or, a narrative about people that I've worked with so I think the book that really made me want to have a similar model was The Missing Link by Sydney Banks. Little short nuggets of wisdom on a page and not necessarily connected. And sometimes the theme repeats itself because I think his idea in the way that it's written is not to read it cover to cover. You just pick it up and every page you're going to get something out of it that will cause you to reflect. So I wanted to do that. And my idea was to take quotes from already well-known philosophers that we've all seen and reflect on them as to what that means to me, to put it into a context. And as I was thinking about creating a book like that, my artist friend, lifelong friend, Steve Lyons, popped up in my head because his work is just it just really is moving to people. It gets you out of your head, certainly. It's very unique. He does this impasto technique where it's almost 3D looking, the paintings. And so uses a lot of paint. They're almost like sculptures with, their paintings. And so I reached out to him to see if that was even a possibility because I wanted art involved in this. And he immediately said yes, of course. And so that evolved from there.
So let me ask you, so how did that collaboration work? Did you choose together which artwork you'd choose and which stories, or how did you pick what to include?
Well, he and I both are busy people. And so it was a challenge to figure out how can we do this. So I sent his assistant at the time the manuscript. And I said, would you mind looking at this? Because I want someone else's point of view, not just my own, because I might pick images that might not land as well with a reader that doesn't know anything about this way of thinking. And so she read the manuscript, and out of his huge collection of art, she selected the images, and then he went over them after looking at the book. And then he said, oh, well, I want this one. No, I want to replace that one. And so that's how we collaborated on what exactly went in there. He specifically chose the cover.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Almost 3-year project. And so he had newer work that he wanted to replace some of the images in for the older ones, but there's 59 images in it altogether, and they're all by him.
Wow. Wow, that's beautiful. And so is there any specific connection? Like, did you put a lot of effort in choosing which image goes around which text, or was that more like an intuitive process?
It was the assistant, Laurie, actually thought this would go good with this particular chapter. What do you think? I didn't alter it a lot. Some I thought were more, in my view, the image that I would want for this particular chapter. But I also wanted it to be someone who knows nothing about this way of thinking, to see which of his images were moving with that chapter, to merge with it. And it was very helpful because you're not the best judge of how it lands.
Yeah, we can sometimes like a little bit of distance when it's, it's a bit too close to home, our own work. Yeah.
Well, and I often have this, I'm a scientist by training. So I have this wanting to control things in my work. And so it's liberating for me to let that go and say, I'm going to trust that she's going to choose better than I will, because they're in the art world and I'm not. And what paintings would move them based on what they're reading in the text.
Yeah, I love that. You said when we spoke earlier, you said that the art is really designed to help people to drop out of their head into a different space.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Well, I didn't want to have an image on every page, but there's almost 60 images and the book is 185 pages. So, 1 out of 3 on average, you're going to see an image. And you cannot look at his paintings without getting out of your head, because you're looking at something that doesn't require words. And so just looking at art, I think that's a point of art with that. If you can resist naming, oh, that's blue, this is round, if you can resist the naming part using words, it turns you inward and touches in something emotional for you. And you're touching your spirit. You're speaking without words to who you really are. And I think that is an really important feature of this book, because unlike a lot of books like The Missing Link, I've seen books of quotes before. They're wonderful if you just open it up and you look at the quote and that's it. But if you have a more moving experience, you can't put music in a book. I would do that if I could. But with visual art, just looking at that gets you out of your head. And then you're reading the quotes and the reflections on them that is designed to really turn people inside, not looking outside of the world.
Yeah, I love that. It's not about reading something. It's about giving people an experience, giving people that moment to reflect and to stand still. It's fascinating. Yeah. So who did you have in mind when you designed this book? Who do you think would be the perfect person for it? If I wanted to gift it to somebody, who would be the perfect person?
Who I had in mind was someone who's troubled about their direction of their life, or unsettled or unhappy about their life, and they're trying to figure out how to make sense of their life and make it better. So first, people have to be in a space where they are recognizing that something is up. And so if you're not in that space, this type of book is probably not going to be the book for you. But if you're in the space where you think that life could be different and better because what you're doing doesn't seem to be working very well, this is the perfect book for you. Because instead of looking outside of yourself and going to 8 million seminars and, numerous gurus and traveling all over the world trying to find something that is really already in you, this book is designed to point in the direction of all that you need is already inside of you. You just have to tap into that.
And I think the tapping into it is the hard part, isn't it? Sometimes people, so how do I do that now?
Yes. I know when I first started learning about this type of understanding of the inside out nature of life, I was still very analytical about it. It's like, well, how do you do it? what do you do? What's the steps? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that isn't how it works. And learning to trust that has been a process. And I think for anyone who is very analytical in their training and in their thinking, it's an amazing process to go through to just trust your inner wisdom and to even recognize it or listen for it. Often we just blow things off. I know I still do. But when something continues to rise up, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should pay attention to this, because this is the third time I've thought about this today. Sometimes you have to feel like a brick has to fall on your head to get your attention. But that's how it was with this book and involving Steve Lyons. But it was a very strong impression. And it even entered my dreams. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I should do this.
Yeah, that's the pull of inspiration. That's kind of irresistible. I love that.
It was. Thankfully, it wouldn't leave me alone.
Yeah, the inspiration, it's picked you. It's like, you're the one who's going to create me. That's fabulous. So, okay, so now you put the book together. How did you find a publisher, or how did you go about bringing it out into the world? Was that easy, or was that?
Well, that's the difficult part, because you're an unknown author and you have to pitch your book to a number of different people. And so that process usually takes a while. It took about a year to find a publisher. And once you do find the publisher, then there's the process of editing and then formatting and then reviewing, and basically every part of the book goes through phases where that just takes time in order to have it become a polished product. And when you have a publisher, are not in control of that entirely. And so you have to be willing to negotiate what is important to you and what you're willing to say, okay, you can do it that way. Because, you know, I don't work in the book publishing industry. I'm publishing a digital magazine, but you can do whatever you want with that. But when you're having to conform to book publishing standards, you know, there's some things that weren't very negotiable that I had to go along with.
Well, fair enough. So in your ideal world, where would you find that book? In people's households and in waiting rooms of hospitals, or what was your vision, and how did that, and has that come true?
Well, I think primarily I wanted it to be a coffee table art book where you'd have it in your house, on your coffee table, at your bedside stand, so that you could refer to it whenever you felt that you needed inspiration, like you would with any other art book. You just open it and you look at it and you feel better. And so the difference with this is you're not reading about artistic techniques when you're looking at the art. You're also reading text that is designed to get you out of your head and into your heart, into a reflective space. I mean, it's really very abstract. It's not with the exception of maybe one short article in it, one chapter, it's really not a 1, 2, 3, do this. It's very abstract to get you into a reflective state.
And I think that's why I love the combination between the text and the art, because I think that understanding specifically, it gets harder to understand it and to really get it the more you're on the level of words and intellect.
Yes.
I think, because that's not where it lives. It's where you hit the limits of language and it becomes really noticeable. You can't really express what it is. So I think to use art to open up that different space, it's just genius.
I'm sure there are, but I don't personally know of any books that are like it. I mean, there may be illustrations in a book, but not using it so heavily that it's used in combination with this abstract sort of text. So I'm very pleased with the result. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I love it. I can't help myself. But would you imagine yourself having a sequel of that, like volume 2, or expand that in one way or another, or having it as an audio book with music and text, combining the elements differently?
That is a wonderful idea. I think if this type of book were combined with music as well, wow, that would be extremely impactful. So yes, I'm open to that. That would be a wonderful way to promote this type of work. And, you know, the music, I think, would need to be something that is not like dance music, obviously, or there's, you know, different styles for what you want to accomplish. But I think for this, it would need to be almost spa music or classical music, something that's almost monotonal.
Yeah. Like meditation gongs or sound bath music, these earth frequencies. I can really imagine that, where the music takes over the role of the visual art and you take the whole thing into the realm of audio. I think that'd be cool. So now back to the book though. Where can people go find it?
Well, it's Amazon in the US, Amazon in the UK. And actually, I've seen it listed on Amazon in many countries. Probably in terms of shipping, if you live outside of the UK or outside of the US, Book Depository is probably one of the best places to get it, because wherever you live, if it's one of the countries they ship to during COVID, the shipping is free. It may take a little longer to get the book, but you won't have to spend the cost of the book to get the book to your house with shipping.
Oh, that's fabulous. So where can people get in touch with you and find out more about what you're up to? And
well, my website is amagnificentmetamorphosis.com. And there are links there for the book, for, you know, if you're interested in looking at anything about the magazine that I publish as well, and all about me as a person. And there's some resources there as well for people who are interested in this type of understanding.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is such wonderful, wonderful work that I think we need to make sure gets in as many hands as possible.
That's my goal.
Well, thanks so much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.